Bonjour, bonsoir. I'm just having a quick look to ensure that we are live on Facebook. It might take a couple of minutes. Let me check. Good. Sorry for the echo. We are all on. So thank you so much for joining us today for this first live interview. I'm starting a new series where once or twice a month I will be inviting some experts from my network to come and talk about their area of expertise, which could be relating to moving, living in France, or business. And the aim of the interview is to share two things. First of all, their expertise, which I think will be very useful to you. And also we'll be sharing about their experience of living in France and having a business. What is it really like? We want to know the nitty-gritty about it. So before we start, I'm going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. So I'm Valerie Aston. I'm the founder of Start Business in France, and I help expatriates prepare, create, and manage their first business in France so they can focus more on developing their activity and enjoying the new lifestyle. And my first guest today, whom you can already see on the screen, is Patricia Brooks from the Courage Catalyst. So Patricia is a business coach. She's empowering women to make a move abroad and make it in a confident manner. And she's also the author of two books, Growing Bold and Living a Bold Life. And today she's going to share her experience with us. So maybe, Patricia, thank you for coming and being the first one to come these live interviews. For those who don't know you, maybe you could start by introducing yourself in more details than I did.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Valerie, for having me. I'm happy to be the guinea pig.
Yes.
I'm Patricia Brooks, and I moved to France 6 years ago. And when I came, I did not know that I was going to start a business here, but I did. And now my business is to help women who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives, living and thriving in their dream countries. And I help them do that by helping them to understand what is holding them back from actually making their dream a reality, creating a plan, and helping them move through that plan so that they can get to the other side and feel how good that feels.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I think it's a major part of that moving abroad. And I think what's really interesting with you is you've already been in France for 6 years now. And we were just chatting before we started. I think the first time we did talk must have been about 3 years ago when you got in touch with me to have a chat about your business plan when you were applying for your visa. And what's interesting is that the expertise that you have, you're coaching it to people, but you've already gone through it both ways. You've designed a course around it to help women. You're living it. I guess you've kept improving your course as well based on your experience. And now, having been in France for 6 years, it's just that depth of experience is really interesting. So today, the reason why I wanted to talk to you as well is that for many people, there's a huge gap between, okay, I know I want to come to France. This is what I might do as a business, but then moving from that idea to turn it into a plan, having a vision about it can be quite tough and can be slowing you down. So the reason we wanted to talk as well was to share, according to you, what were the four tips that you would give to someone in order to move to France confidently. So maybe you could start with our first tip that you would give to people who are thinking about moving to France.
Yeah, and the first three tips actually mirror what I teach in my program. So the first one is creating a vision of what you want your new life to look and feel like. And that really starts with understanding why. Why do you want to move to France? Why do you want to move to the country you want to move to? And this at a deeper reason, at a deeper level, because a lot of people I speak to, they don't necessarily like what's going on in their current country. And so they can have a sense of wanting to flee or run away from something that they don't like. But if you're not running towards something, then doing what's required, the hard work, and staying motivated to do the hard work when you don't really know why you're going to make this move and what your life is going to look and feel like, it's really challenging. And so that's the first tip, is to know your why. Why is it that you're going to turn your life upside down? And how does that align with your core values, the things that you hold dear, the principles that guide your life?
I suppose the clearer you are to this vision, the easier it is also to keep motivated. I
Yes.
mean, today I was talking to a customer, and she's still in the US, planning to come to France. We talked about a couple of business ideas, and she had a month to think about it. And and this month when we caught up, she said, "Well, that first idea I did start doing some visualization about it. I just don't like it. What I'm saying is not what I want. That's not enough. I want something that is closer to my values, which is what you said, something that is really strong and I feel that I can carry over a few years." And that's not the first plan. So she's rethinking, readapting. And to me, that vision step is really good. I think it's just not about it's business, it's personal. I mean, what would you involve in that vision? Which are the different topics that you would cover in the vision?
Yeah. And I would say for me, I didn't do this consciously when I made my move abroad, but I knew that I wanted to learn to speak French fluently. That was a goal, that was a vision I had. I wanted to have challenges that would stretch me, right? And in the US, I could find those, but it seemed like, okay, I wrote my book. That was a challenge, but now, I'm looking for another one. I wanted something I wanted something that was going to keep me occupied and challenged for a long time. And I thought, yeah, moving to a foreign country will do that. And it definitely has. And then that third thing that I had wanted in my vision was to write my second book here. And I thought, well, I'll have some good stories to tell, once I move there. And so those were the things that kind of pushed me to and motivated me to get here.
Yeah, I mean, this week I was thinking about this interview, and first time we talked together, and I remember so when I was reading your business plan, so I read things like, okay, yeah, so I want to move to France, I want to become a coach, I'm going to write another book, I'm going to create a group for women and create a program. And this week I was thinking, check, check, check. So you definitely, I think you were very clear. I think you were very clear in what you wanted to do in France,
Mhm.
both personally and business-wise. Uh, and you certainly have ticked the box and worked in a very clear, straightforward way, or you knew what you were aiming for. So maybe made it easier, although it wasn't an easy task.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think thank you for saying that. I think that the other piece of that is, so then once you check all the boxes, then what's your reason for staying, right? Well,
Yeah.
you can design another why, or you can uncover a deeper why. And for me, I know that I wanted to be in France because of beauty. Things here are beautiful, the language is beautiful, the food is beautiful, and that to me is of core value that I didn't even really know I had, but has evolved or has surfaced as I've lived here.
So do you adjust your vision from a personal point of view? Do you think, okay, right, I feel I've gone around this. Am I doing another vision for the next 3 to 5 years? Or is it something that you every year you just adjust according to what you feel like?
I think it's really a personal choice. I think that for me, I know now that when I moved to France, I had the vision of getting here. And when I got here, I wasn't working, I didn't have this job, and I had a lot of time to think. And so, because I didn't have my next project
Yeah.
set up, that caused a lot of overwhelm, and thoughts of, should I have done this crazy thing, right? And so my recommendation is to have that next project set up. If you have a big goal that you have set for yourself and you reach it, make sure that, and this is part of the vision too, make sure that you have that next thing set up, or what you want to do, so that you aren't kind of floundering and you can keep on moving.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I think what I like is the fact that when you're going through tougher times, the fact that you have that clear vision, at least you can go back to it. You're having a tough time, say, why did I come here in the first place? Ah, yeah, that's what I really like. That's what I appreciate. That's what I wanted. And halfway there, you keep going. And also in terms of of business, I also like the idea of having a vision, because sometimes people say, well, I'm coming to France and basically I'm going to go for a business visa, therefore I need to have a business. The aim is to get the income they want me to get to renew the visa. And that in itself is not necessarily an end goal. Exactly. I mean, I remember when I was before start business in France, I was a business advisor to French entrepreneurs, and there was a guy who lived in Paris for many years. He was a sales rep selling furniture to large corporations, and then he ended that contract because he was fed up of being in Paris. He wanted to be in Normandy. He came to see me. We worked on a business project where he wanted to sell online and to businesses artisan food. So he was selling cake, chocolate, artisanal food from Normandy to larger organization and employees. And initially, he's a very driven man, right? I want to make that much turnover. And then so worked on the plan, got the money from the bank, launched a business. And 1 year later, he came to see me and said, I'm just so depressed. So what's going wrong? Everything's fine. I got that turnover, but I'm just so bored. I just hate what I'm doing. What I want to have more time to be with my daughter. I want to play golf. I don't like this.
Yes, and those are the whys that he needed to incorporate in any business that he would have started, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's very interesting. So what would be, so we have Adekola who's here today, who's from your programs. She's very pleased to be on your online program. So we'll talk about that program later on, when you helping women to work on their project to move abroad. What would be the second tip that you would give to people who are watching us and thinking about coming to live in France or in a different country?
Well, so you've got the why, you've got your vision now, but there's still going to be some hesitation, some fears, some doubts, some uncertainties that could stall your plans to move abroad. And so working through those and keeping them away is the next thing. If you want to move abroad confidently, if you want to actually get there, you're going to need to move through those fears. And so there are a number of ways that you can do this, right? One of the things that I have found is really helpful in creating or building confidence is looking back to things that you have accomplished in your life that were hard, that you did not necessarily know or believe you would have achieved, and list those, write those down. And then, pick one or maybe two that you're most proud of, that you can remind yourself of when you start to say, is it really possible for me to move abroad? And you say, no, no, there was that time when I didn't know that I was going to be able to get that economics degree because I'd failed that comprehensive exam that was required. And now look at me, I got that degree and I didn't think I could do that. And so if I did that, I'm sure I can do this. And I call this a confidence anchor. So having that is something that will help you to build your confidence. Also, understanding who the other piece of this in moving through your fears and doubts is really how you self-identify. You haven't, most people haven't made a move abroad. So if you haven't made a move abroad, it's hard to see yourself doing it, see and believe that you can do it. And so shifting that self-identity to the kind of person who moves abroad confidently and sustainably is key. I read the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, and he spoke about two different people who were trying to quit smoking. And he talks about this, and it really illustrates what I'm talking about here in the shift in identity. He said that, there was one person who was offered a cigarette, and that person said, "Oh, no, thank you. I am trying to quit smoking." And the second person who was trying to quit smoking was offered a cigarette, and that person said, "No, thank you. I don't smoke." Right. And that's day and night. And so people who come through my program and who are working through their fears and in the structure that I use, they go from saying, if I move abroad, to when I move abroad. And that's the difference.
That's a major shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you become this person? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Uh, And so maybe you can talk about that program a little bit before we go and move into the different aspect, because I think really the fear is quite a major step for people, because you will say, "Oh yeah, I want to do this," but then when you think about that project, it becomes so huge that doing it on your own can feel like, "Well, I'm not going to get there. That's just too hard." Or it seems too big a step. So I think what's interesting in your program is that people are joining a group where other people are doing it. So when they see others progress as well, it can be a motivation. Or
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people who are also in that optic. Because sometimes when you're at home and you say, "Oh, I'm moving to Italy or moving to France," people might say, "Well, you're just nuts." Uh,
Yeah, yeah. You don't have your circle of friends is kind of like, why would you do that, right?
yeah,
They think you're crazy. Yes, I can definitely talk about my program. I did want to say one other thing about this fear is sometimes we don't even know that what's holding us back is fear, right? We might be in the mode of collecting a lot of information about what's going to be required, you know, 3 years down the line when I'm living in France, and we're just collecting that information and we get stuck in the analysis paralysis, and deep down the thing that's holding us back is that fear. So
yeah. I suppose so. Sometimes we just see problems bigger than they are. Thinking, "Oh, what will I do when when I reach this level?" Well, we're not there yet. So let's focus on the problems you have now. And when you reach bigger problem, you look for solution for those bigger problems. But what I like about what you said earlier is, we say it's like that person think, "I'm trying to I'm trying to stop smoking," or I have stopped smoking. It's the same when you create your business. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm thinking," or "What are you doing?" "Oh, nothing. I'm just working." No, I'm not doing nothing. I'm working on that business project, or I'm working on moving to France. And sometimes you may not feel like talking to others about it because it feels so far away, or you don't master so much of it that you don't share it. And I think when you do share it, first of all, it also increases your confidence, because people say, "Oh yeah, what are you thinking of doing, or where would you go?" So the fact that you talk about it, it becomes more real, and that you might come across people. It's always when you go to a dinner party, there's always one person out of six who might have something related to, "Oh yeah, I went there, or I went to France, my friend's doing this." So it's always, it's good for morale as well to start talking about it.
yeah, absolutely. So did you want me to share a
Now
little
you
bit
can
about
go
my
and talk
program?
about the program to see how this is working and how you're helping people in the group.
Okay. So the program is two parts. There is the online course portion where we go through what's your why and the visioning so that you have that solid foundation. That second part of the course is about shifting that self identity. It's all about, well, what habits do I need to change? What beliefs do I need to change or strengthen? What are those soft skills that are going to allow me to settle in this foreign country and deal with the cultural differences and everything that's different. And so identifying where there are gaps, creating that plan so that they can build those skills and new habits. And then that third module in the course, the online course program, is about creating a plan, closing out your old life in your old country, setting up your new life in your new country, working that plan, holding yourself accountable, or coming to the coaching calls to be held accountable for that, so that you can actually start living in your dream country. And so that's the online portion of the program. But there is the group coaching and mentoring sessions where you can get on those calls. And as you're working through the lessons, maybe you're stuck in, maybe the values lesson is something you're struggling with. You can get on a call. We can talk through that so that you can keep on moving through the lesson so you have that solid foundation. Or perhaps you have moved through the lessons and you're actually working on your plan, but you aren't cleaning out the attic that you said you were going to clean out 3 months ago. And so we talk through, well, what is keeping you from doing that? And we create a plan to help you to move through that so that you can get this stuff done so that you can move forward and live in your dream country. There is group, so there is there are other women. This program is for single women. There are other women in the program who are going through the same process. that you're going through, or maybe they've already made their move abroad. And as you said, that's very inspiring because they don't feel like they're doing it alone and they see other people like them who are doing it. And as they're being coached, they're asking a question or being coached through something, you're sitting there and you're being side coached because it may not have been
Yeah.
anything that was on your mind, but it's something that you might need to consider.
Yeah, it's echoing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that final part of the coaching calls is that accountability. I need to do my French lessons so that when I get there, I have some basis of this language, so I am not completely a fish out of water. So that's the group coaching portion. And then there is the private Facebook group for encouragement, asking questions. And last year actually I had my first in-person meetup. We
Oh,
had
did
a
you? Oh,
meetup
nice.
in Marseille. Yes,
Ah, lovely.
yes. And so that's going to be an annual thing. So there's access to that through the program as well. Now, this program has access for 3 years. So the ideal candidate, as I said, is a single woman who is 18 months, 6 months to 18 months or 2 years out from their move, because that gives them enough time to work on the vision, on building, becoming the kind of person who moves abroad confidently and sustainably, and creating and working that plan. But then also on the back end, they have, a year or so where once they've made their move, things might not be as exactly as they had expected. And so they might be like I was, thinking, oh, maybe I made a big mistake. What do I do? Should, have I,
Yes,
yeah,
it's nice to have the support to fall back onto. So it's not, oh, you're here, goodbye. It's you're here, and you still have that group that you can
yeah,
keep
yeah.
talking to and feedback as well your experience.
Yeah, and so that's the program that it's called the Carefree Expat Incubator program. Some people have asked me, oh, but what if I'm not a single woman? Can I join the program? Well, it is for single women. However, I do have a handful of slots for one-on-one coaching where we can work through very similar things to help you, make your move abroad.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to have this kind of support. And I think it's true that sometimes when you do, it's okay to do your research on your own or to have some online courses. But then it's just so nice to have that person that you're talking to, that he's in France, you have the group to talk to. And sometimes when you get stuck, you might get stuck on something which to you seems huge and actually isn't that huge. And through a coaching session, you're going to shift that belief, or you're gonna get rid of that roadblock more easily. So that's really good.
Yep.
So maybe we can move on to the third point that you would give, the third advice that you would give to someone who
Mhm.
wants to move confidently.
So that third piece is the third part in my program, and that is to develop and execute your move abroad plan. And a lot of people struggle with this because time management is a big issue, right? So one of the things that I recommend is to list out the tasks that you're going to need to complete in order to make this move abroad. Have that timeline, your leap date, your
Yeah,
tentative leap
yeah,
date, because sometimes that moves. And the things that you're going to need to complete, and look at your calendar. And a lot of times we are really busy, right? And so finding the time on the calendar to do the things that we need to do is a big hurdle, a big obstacle. And so one of the things that I recommend for this portion is to, take an honest inventory of what you've got going on and go back to your why, and get clear on why it is you need to do this, and then look at what you've got going on and see what things might need to give so that you can find the time on your calendar to do the work that's required to make this move abroad.
yeah.
Um,
Adding this to your calendar is always quite scary, but at least it looks very concrete into taking action.
mhm.
And what's also important, as you say, is that when people you say over 18 months before you move to France, because you also have to um, tidy up your life in your home country before you move abroad. And if you own a property, that's already in itself is a major job. If you have a house that you're going to rent or sell, prepare your family and so on, there's just so much to do. But at least I think that part gets you into action, because at least that move to a different country becomes very more realistic. Because okay, right, I've got to empty those 2 rooms, I've got to empty the garage or sell 1 car. What would I do about this? And also the finances can be quite a scary part, because you think, well, how much money do I need to move to France? And how am I going to get that money? So that's also a hurdle to work through, or maybe get advice for someone to help you work on this. But that's also a major part of moving abroad. You have to have that budget ready
Right.
to support yourself. If not only for a visa application, because usually we say, well, for the visa application, you need to prove I will earn so much income or have savings, but also for you to fall back onto if things aren't working as you wanted to feel settled, because you have that safety plan, you have that cushion to fall back onto.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to add on to that financial piece, I think that, if you're moving to France and you're starting a business and you know what you want to do and you've got a little bit of time ahead of moving there, get started.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Get started because it takes time. Your first year, I didn't start my business in my first year, right? So I was already situated, settled. I wasn't dealing with this culture shock. So your first year, you're dealing with that. And if you're starting a business from scratch, it can be really challenging. So that should be, I think, something that if you have the time, get started.
Yeah, many people, when they move, they are starting a brand new activity, and that in itself is quite scary. You're moving to a country, so a whole thing to discover. You've got a brand new business, that can be a lot of pressure. So even if it's testing your services at home, that's one bit that will also help you get more confident on test your services, because at least you
Yes.
have some feedback in terms of, oh, my price is right, am I enjoying this, do I need to change something, start getting some contracts or potential contracts. And I think definitely for my customers, when we work more on the business side, we try to work on some projections on turnover and the cost of living. And some of it is scary, because you think, my word, I've got to do so much in turnover. How much is that in customers? And we just knocked it down compared to the average services. So it feels more real to them. Okay, I will need to sign so many people. Do I feel comfortable with this? Or I will need to have so many bookings. They sound comfortable. So that is a scary part. I think I would advise you to work with somebody else. If the numbers scare you, work with someone, work with an accountant to help you with the numbers. But I also like the projection from the personal finances to be realistic as well. Okay, right, if I was to live in France, where would I live? What is the cost? Which kind of, do I want to rent a flat? Do I want to have a house? What is the price range over there? How much will it cost me? So at least it becomes also realistic to you. Or, all right, that starts to feel really, yeah, I can start to project myself, because I see the kind of house I would like, how
Mhm.
far it is, or which kind of activities I want to have. So I can budget to make sure I have those activities in my life, which make me happy. And so numbers are scary, but they can also be reassuring when you can say, okay, that's what I would afford. That's what I can afford in France. And usually from the US, you probably realize you can afford more than in the US for the same budget. And also for your activity to be, okay, I need to sign up so many people. I need to have so many customers. But
Yeah, and I think that you make a really good point there that, looking at the numbers, while it's scary, can be a part of the visioning process because as you're saying, oh, where would I live? Okay, what size apartment am I going to live in? And how much would that cost me? And you start kind of, as you say, projecting yourself into that scene, and that starts to make it feel more real. So,
yeah, definitely. That's what you said earlier. Who do I need to become in order to live in a new country?
mhm.
This also strengthens the vision of who you would be, right? The person you would be in that country, or even just to think sometime it's important to keep some of the stuff from your previous life,
Yeah.
things that you really make you happy, that bring you joy. Well, how would I do them in France? I know you play music, you kept music once you were in
Yes.
France, but it's whatever makes you happy, to make sure you have some of that. So if things get tougher, you've got that piece of joy that is still within your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what would be your fourth tip that you would share with us for someone who wants to move abroad or move to France?
And so it's this fourth one has to do with, once you move abroad, when managing those feelings that will come up for you, the feelings of isolation or that self doubt that crept in for me, it might creep in for you as well. And building and creating community. And this is something that you can do as a part of that plan that you're executing on. Because as you're taking care of things you need to close out in your old life, you are also taking care of things that you need to set up in your new life. You can start to become a part of certain Facebook groups, or you can, if you're learning the language, you can start working with somebody on a conversation exchange who lives in the country or the region that you're moving to. And in that way, start to create a friendship or a bond there, so that once you are on the ground, you have somebody to say, well, once I get settled, let's have coffee. And so that's a way to kind of ease into that with and prepare for that while you're still where you currently live.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
As definitely, especially you have so many Facebook groups, and you might, based on your activity, you might also find specific groups that are related to what you do,
Mhm.
and you might make connections which become which are exciting to you or based on your hobby. So that's nice, because that's what you said. At least you can at least meet up with some expat here to start with. And then how would you recommend the integration with the local community, or was that something that took time for you, or that you had
Well,
to make extra efforts as an expat?
yes. For me, I think it was easier in some ways because as I said, my goal was to become fluent in French. And so I kind of shied away from English speaking expats because I just knew that if I fell into that, then I wasn't going to force myself to learn. So in some ways it was easier because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to speak and make friends with locals. So, but on the other hand, it's harder because as an adult or as adults, I think even where you're currently living, it can be hard to make new friends. People have their own friend circles, people are busy. And so what I did was I went to, well, there are a couple things I did. As I did prepare in advance. I was a member of Weight Watchers in the United States. They have Weight Watchers, or had Weight Watcher meetings in my region. Now I don't think they exist, or I think, or maybe in bigger cities they do. So I signed up to go to the Weight Watcher meetings, and that helped me to be around locals. Also, there was a meditation center that had a sister meditation center in Richmond, Virginia, which is where I'm from,
All right.
but it was in Perpignan. So I, on a scouting trip, I went there and said, oh, I'm planning on moving here. And so I kind of, started to, make inroads that way. So that was one thing I did before. But then once I was on the ground, somebody told me about the site called On Va Sortir,
Oh,
OVS.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that was that's what I did. I went there and looked for things that looked interesting. And one of the things that I did was I saw a laughter yoga class,
Awesome.
and I'd never done laughter yoga, didn't really know what it was, but it seemed like it was interesting. So I took the bus to this out of the way place, and I got there. And I remember that first day, I have these introvert tendencies, so I can be a wallflower. And I knew that this is not going to help me to make friends. So I went in there and I was like, okay, Patricia, you're going to put yourself out there. You're going to introduce yourself, and, you're going to knock this out of the park. And so I did. I went in, there's a group of 3 or 4 people standing around, and I went in, I said, Je m'appelle Patricia. And they all looked at me like, okay, so what? Taylor, right?
Hello.
And it wasn't until a couple years later when I read the book, The Bonjour Effect, that talks
Yeah.
about cultural
Oh, yeah.
differences, where I learned that, well, first names can be a private thing for French people. And so my just going in boldly, just saying, oh, who I was not necessarily the thing to do.
Yeah.
But in the United States, I would have gotten, oh, and my name is, right? And it would have started that conversation. But instead, I kind of felt, a little bit, back on my heels. But I kept going because I knew that it was the way. I was just going to have to
Yes, is keep going out of your comfort
comfort
zone, really
zone.
pushing
Yeah.
out yourself.
And,
Jillian, sorry,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Jillian
No,
is asking who was the group, so I'm just gonna type it for her.
oh,
So
okay.
OVS, go ahead while I type. Or what were you
And
gonna say?
and so, what I was saying is, yes, you have to continue to go out of your comfort zone, but you also have to give yourself grace. you have to learn to laugh at yourself. These are some of the things that you need to develop if you don't already have this, so that you can move abroad confidently and sustainably. And so for me, it was like, but I knew my why, right? I was like, okay, that didn't go as planned, but I'm going to push on. I'm not going to rake myself over the coals. I'm going to give myself that grace
Exactly.
and keep on going. And, it's, it's gotten a lot better now. I have fewer faux pas now. But in the beginning, it was hard.
Yeah, I think it is hard, even for French people who have to go into all the circles. Is always tough. But I think finding the group that is close to something that you like make it easier. So if you're into sport, or you like tennis, or you like kayaking, or you like
Mhm.
dancing, France just has loads of what they call les assos,
Yes.
just like les assos, les associations, and to find the one that is close to what you like. For instance, in most towns, in the on the first of on early September, in most towns, you have
Oh,
a
yes.
day for non-profit association, le jour des assos. I'll just stop the name in a moment. But basically, every single non-profit association or activity that is in your village or in your town, they're all usually in the sport hall. And in one day, you can see tennis, kayaking, golfing, sewing, whatever. So you can see everything that's around. So at least you can see the one that is gonna you feel happy about, or you might want to join. Gives you an idea of what's around, and that could be an easier one to break into, because at least if, for instance, let's say you like music, you might go to the music association, or you like playing tennis. It's easier to make friends, I think, through an activity, especially if you come in your, I think they call it la journée des associations or something like that.
Something like that. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That I've been to those, and it's a great way because you get to see, what activities are in your community, but you also get to meet the people that you might be, doing that activity with, and whether or not you click or not, right? So
Yeah,
it's
exactly. You can get a feel of whether the association is. And if you have kids, usually with parents in September, we're going, right, with our notebooks, all right, you're doing this,
Mhm.
you're doing this, and that. And it's true for parents who might have toddlers. In France, activities below 6 years old, there isn't that much. So you don't want to miss that day, because usually that's where all the registrations are. And if you've missed it by a couple of months, sometimes some of the associations, they're full, they can't take more people. So
Mhm.
September in France, check the association to make sure you can have some of the activities that might be of interest to you. So thank you so much for sharing those tips. I think they will become very useful to many people, whether they want to move to France or somewhere else. And now we're going to move to the second part of this interview, where I want you to talk more about your particular experience of freelancing. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about which kind of business you. So when you moved to France, you set up as a coach. So which kind of business did you go for initially?
So the auto entrepreneur is how I'm set up, and that was I got the profession liberal visa in order to set that up, and I chose that one just because, well, you had suggested that I start simple.
Yes, always my motto: keep it simple.
And that would allow me to set up this business that where I could do my coaching. In my business plan, I had some other things that I could do to help, cobble together the income that I would need to prove to reapply for the second year. So I was a project manager in the United States, so project consulting was in there. Um, I think working with businesses and helping them with their business English was in there as well. Those were things that I could one-on-one coaching. I had my program listed, but the one-on-one coaching was in there. So having a variety of things in there.
To keep it broad at the registration stage, so you could do everything that you wanted.
Yes. Yes.
And so how did that work? So how did that work for you? How did you find this French business compared to what you might have done in the US? Or how tricky or difficult was it
Well,
to?
so I think in the US, it's just really simple to set up a business. You can be a sole proprietor and say, okay, today I'm gonna do this thing, and I'm just gonna start offering this service. And in France, after I applied for my visa, and it was granted. Then I had to set up, and you can help me explain this. I had to set up my business in France and be set up with the URSAF, and I don't know what that stands
Yeah.
for, but get that all my ducks in a row, get my SIRET number, all of that. And that was one of the things that I worked with you, Valerie, on was, okay, I did the heavy lift of
Yeah.
the visa,
Somebody do that part. Yeah.
right? Here, take this for me. And you set that up so nicely for me that um, everything was in place for me. So I think that's a difference from the United States to France, that if you do the sole proprietorship in the US, you on your taxes you need to file, but as you set it up, there's not necessarily something you have some place you have to go and register. I think the second difference is that as um, as an entrepreneur here, you have access to the healthcare system, right? You pay into it, and you pay into it kind of heftily, but you have access to the healthcare system. In the United States, well, you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have to pay out of pocket, sometimes 600, 700, however many hundreds of dollars a month for that health insurance. And where I pay 22% for all of my social charges, so that's health care, but that's unemployment, that's disability, that's
Pension.
retirement.
Yeah. Mm.
um, if I have a month that's slow, maybe I have, don't do any sales that month, I'm still covered, right? For my health care. So
Yeah, that's a major. That's a major difference. Because once you arrive in France, you're nowhere in the system, and the fact that you create your business quickly sets you put one foot in the system. So the fact that you create your business generates your health cover, and that, as you said, that can be in your budget. It makes a big difference because you have the pension. Well, you're paying into a French pension, you're getting into the health cover, you got a small training fund, but getting that healthcare in place is a major big deal. And as you said, if you have a quarter or a month where you have no income, that doesn't impact on your health cover, because the
yeah,
principle in France is that you want to make a living, therefore you're paying in the pot, but you also aim to contribute because you want to live off your activity. So I suppose there was quite a bit of work initially, I think, um, when you create your business compared to the US. There's probably a lot of paperwork arriving, especially because you try to settle down with the with the country. You don't necessarily know all of them, but the body you were mentioning before yourself, you said you were paying 22% of taxes. That's what generates your health cover and your capital. For those who are watching, I mean, just one small warning is your health cover is done through your business. However, because you're brand new to France and they don't know you, setting it into place can take 3 to 4 months. So my advice is, when you come over, you have to set up a specific health cover for your visa application. Keep it until you have your carte vitale in your hand, because if you had a major thing, although you're covered officially, if you don't have the card itself, you have to pay up front, then you get reimbursed. If you had to go for hospital for something serious, you wouldn't want that. So keep your national health cover until you have the I write it down, the carte vitale, which is your like a green card for when you go and see the doctor in the hospital in France. Is where all your medical record is, and it proves that you are into the French health cover and you don't have to pay for things.
yeah. Unfortunately, I had my carte vitale before, so that
Oh,
was
did
one less
you?
thing.
Oh,
One
right.
less thing I had to do when I
How
went
comes?
into
Because
business.
you already came to France before?
Well, I hadn't. So I got when I came on initially, I was on a visitor visa,
Yeah.
and then got my carte vitale
Ah,
with
right.
that. And so when
Right.
I got when I started the business,
Yeah,
that
the carte vitale is for life. It's basically you have a carte vitale and you have what we call a social security number. So once it's issued, it's for life. It's just if you leave, or if you leave the country, it stops working. But don't throw it, because if you come back, you dig it out and you just reactivate it. So basically you've been in business now for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
What would you say? How much time is it taking you to manage the activity? Was it different at the start and now? Do you spend a lot of time on it?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I think it seemed more manageable. And I think part of that was because I had joined a program to help me to structure how my business and my program is set up. And so I was just going through the steps of that, and doing the beta test, and um, then getting the evergreen version of my course program. And so that was a lot of work, but it was more independent work. Once I got that all going, then the next phase of this program, or how I built my business, was, oh, okay, I'm going to work, and create a YouTube channel, right? And so that's when the work started to increase, because doing a video a week is time consuming with the editing and all of that. And the end of last year, beginning of this year, I upped that number
Yeah.
to a recorded video a week, but then a live stream video typically once a week. That's my aim. And so that was a lot of work. And then so as I'm starting to generate interest, there's the social media that I work to communicate back and forth with. So that adds an element. So I would say the first 3 months of this year, where I was slammed. I was going all day, every day, and I couldn't breathe. But that was a good thing, because before that, things had slowed for me, and I needed to actually get in front of people. And so I started talking to people and getting on podcasts, and got on International Living Magazine's YouTube channel, and that started to generate some interest. And so the busyness was a good thing, because that was showing that I was now reaching more people. Now, the middle of this month, things have slowed and I can breathe. And so there it ebbs and flows, I think. But know that, if you're running a business and you want to make it successful, typically it's more than a full-time job.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, you've been so busy because it's like what I like we do is always say, "Oh, I'm going to just write a book." Check. 6 months later, 1 year, check. I'm just going to launch a YouTube channel, and just check you again. How many subscribers have you got? You
But
just you just you just you just produce a high content, a high level of content and quality content, because you are regular. I think that it's like your book is you're confidently. Working regularly towards it. You put the hours, you do the lives, you deliver a lot of values. I mean, your videos, for those of you who are thinking about moving to France, I will share the link below. But your videos about your life in France are also, I mean, I can see how much time you're spending on this, because it's just.
yeah. And the thing is, and this is another reason, going back to the beginning of this conversation, what's your why? What's your why for moving abroad? What's your why for running this business, right? Because it's been a slow process. I mean, as you point out, it's consistency, right? That week in, week out, I have those videos, and I started out with 39 subscribers. And, a year and a half, 2 years into my YouTube journey, I've lost track, maybe 2,800, right? And that feels amazing to
That
me.
is
But
amazing.
a lot of that has happened in the first 3 months of this year. So
All right.
it's the progress is slow and steady, and then all of a sudden you kind of get to that tipping
Yeah,
point.
you reap the benefits of all the hard work that you've done for a year now, because you just didn't show up. You've been working at it,
Yeah.
week in, week out, producing quality content.
And if I'd lost sight of my why, I could have said, oh, this is too hard, and then not gotten to that tipping point where things are really starting to work out for me.
Yeah. And so going back to the business, would you say there's a major difference or cultural difference from the US and from the UK as to running your business, or now you're more into, because when you're talking, I hear more someone talking about the business, then it's not anymore about the structure and taxes and so on. You're more focused on, okay, that's how I'm going to develop my activity. All that paperwork seems to, or hopefully it seems to have disappeared or have
Mhm.
been integrated.
Mhm. Yeah, it's about the business now. It's not about the administration so much. Every 3 months I have to claim what I've earned, and pay into my social charges. But beyond, and which is a really simple process. Um, so beyond that, I don't necessarily know if there are any cultural differences other than the ease of setting this up,
Yeah.
the ease of setting it up a business in the U.S. versus
But
here.
that's
Um,
reassuring.
yeah, Yeah.
And so the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because you basically, when you came over, you came with a visa profession libérale, which was issued for 1 year, and then you renewed it. So you went to the prefecture locally to renew it. Not only did you get a renewal, but you got a multi-year renewal. So how did
Yes.
you prepare for that?
So it's a very stressful process. So applying for the visa initially is a stressful process because you're like, oh, is my business plan good enough? And will they approve me? But then you get it and it's like, oh, great. And you feel like, oh, I've got a year to prove myself. But that year goes fast.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that, they look for is, did you meet the French minimum wage, right? And so, toward the end of that first year, I was like, oh, I'm a little shy. And so I was hustling. And that period was really stressful. I'm like, oh, yeah, in my business plan, I said I was going to do project consulting. So I started digging into that.
All right.
And so, like, the lead up to the renewal was very, very stressful. That said, I, had everything together. Oh, one thing I forgot was when I applied for the Profession Liberal visa, that was in the United States. And so my business plan was in English. So 2 weeks before I was to go into my appointment, I realized, oh, my business plan is in English. And at that point, I was quite capable of, translating it myself, but I didn't have the time, the energy to do it because I'm working to make sure that my numbers work. And so I hired somebody to take care of that. So that was one thing that I hadn't thought of too far in advance. But the appointment was good. It was, I went in with my stack of papers, my business plan, and they, just checked things off to see if I had it. And it was really basically they were collecting it for them to review. And I went away saying, well, I did everything I could. Hopefully they will renew it. Maybe they will renew it for only a year, but if I get another year, I'll be happy. And so when I went back in, I got a letter in the mail saying, to come back in. I don't necessarily know if it said I was approved. So it was kind of like, I just assumed because they didn't say, oh, no, you have a certain amount of time to get out of the country that it was approved. But I went in and I remember sitting, at the window and they slipped through the piece of paper I needed to sign. And on that paper, I saw that it said pluriannuel. And I thought, oh, so I
Several
knew it
years.
wasn't 1 year. I knew it was at least 2 years because it gets renewed for either 2 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I still didn't know how many years, but when they gave me my carte de séjour and it said it was good through 2026, I was like, oh, thank
Amazing.
God.
That's really good, especially as you said. You think, yeah, you can do a lot of stuff, but you probably can do if your own country, all you do is focus on your business. But once you move to France or a different country, you've got so much to cope with. You have to settle down. Sometimes you might have to move flat several times. If you're not too far from your home country, you're quite likely to have loads of visitors coming to see you. And therefore, you don't have as much as time as planned to actually work on the business.
And then there's the learning curve, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
running a business, if you haven't done it
Yeah.
before, is not necessarily that.
The easiest. But what's quite interesting is when you are on the stage of renewing the visa. I mean, the good thing is that business plan that you did initially, you can dig it out and just write a cover letter to see how things have gone since you prepared, how close are you to projections, and sometimes you round up as long as you justify, right, this is where I'm slightly under and plan things, and this is what I'm going to working on to increase the turnover for the next few years. They're really keen on seeing, okay, what are the actions that you're going to take to actually keep improving the situation. Obviously, show some savings if you have some. But I had the case of another customer who basically, first year in France, she'd just been so busy with people. She moved house 3 times. She had loads of people coming to visit them over the summer. So the house was full from June till September. And then they also traveled a lot in France and Europe because, we're going to go and see the Christmas market. We're going to go and do this. And then she said, my business. So it was lower than planned as well. However, she also wrote that letter explaining what she would do. She actually received the telling off. letter saying they.
Mhm.
But before she got the answer, she was told off that it wasn't to expectation, and then she got a pluriannual visa renewal as well because she justified why it wasn't as good as expected. She had savings and she had a clear plan as to what you do. But for any business, even in France, we expect that it takes you 3 years to develop a business between the plan and what it is.
Mhm.
Full activity is going to take you 3 years. So as long as you can explain, keep giving examples of what you want to do, and that's mes job plan. But I thought it was pretty cool that you managed to get the pluri-annual visa from the first year. It's just and being a first-time freelancer, that's just
I think that, and my prefecture, Perpignan, I think they're pretty good. I applied 3 or 4 weeks later. I got the letter. I have a friend who I think is still went for the first review or first renewal and hasn't ever gotten the carte de séjour, and she's on her second year, right?
right.
And so my prefecture is really pretty good. And I think the other piece of that is I don't know. This is a sense I have is I renewed a couple of visas there before. I think maybe
All
they knew
right.
my
The track
name.
record, yeah.
I have a sense. I don't have any proof, but I have a sense that maybe.
I have a sense that your dossier was pretty well prepared.
Yeah.
The inkling of that, it was spot on.
Thank you.
Coming from the former project manager, I got no doubt about that. So, Patricia, before we end this interview, I wanted to know what were the projects that you were working on. I will share below once later on today or tomorrow morning. I will share the links on your website. There's a couple of links that people I think would enjoy having a look at. You have a quiz to help people assess how far off they are from moving to France. I think you call it the Move Abroad and Thrive Mental Readiness Quiz. I thought that was great to see how far off you are, things you need to work on. I also would strongly recommend your books, Growing Bold and Live a Bold Life. You can also get a couple of chapters or 1 or 2 chapters from your website,
Mhm.
from the Growing Bold books. I will add a link to that because I think people who are at the early stages, that's going to help you tremendously. You have the book, and you also have the second one is more like a workbook, 30 days to start working on it.
Yeah, well, so yeah, they're both kind of like workbooks. The second one is how to, how are you going to grow bold? How are you going to become the kind of person who moves abroad confidently and sustainably? And so it's through affirmations, creating affirmations that speak to you. And it's just a 30-day talks about my first year in France, the, experiences I had and the ahas I had. And then you create your own personalized affirmations that help you to move through those fears and doubts and get you on the right track. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so, what are the projects that you're working on? Like, I'm going to take some notes. I can speak to you in a year's time.
Uh-oh. You're gonna hold my feet to the fire. I've got, well, book number 3 is in the works.
Great.
I had a deadline of the end of last year to have the draft completed, and I completed the initial draft at the end of January. So it was a little bit off. And then I had my first reader read it, and we had a conversation, and I knew that it wasn't quite where it needed to be. And so still, 2024 is I'm aiming to have that third book published. Having said that, I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of material or content to add to it to make it the book that it needs to be. But that's still on my radar for, having the English version published.
Yeah, because your book Growing Bold is also in French. I went on Amazon today, and it's in.
Yeah, the both of them have been. I hired somebody to translate it because my French is not that good.
Sure, you're not okay. You're reassuring. You're not as well bilingual in French.
It's just, sounding French, right? I can get my point across, and I
Oh
think I
yes,
sound okay, but sounding French, I probably say words and phrases that just don't necessarily fit. People understand, but it's obvious that I'm not native, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and so that's one project. The second project is, well, I'd like to get to a C1 level in French.
Mm.
Um, because I like a challenge, like
Yeah, yeah,
I
you
said
do.
at the beginning, but also because they have changed the level for, I want to go for citizenship, maybe
Yeah,
not this year, but they've changed the level, right? And
yeah, for
I
citizenship.
got the level that they
Mm.
wanted before, and I'm like, okay, well, let me just go above the level they're asking for in case they
Just in case
change
they
it.
change the rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
So, toward the end of this year, I think I want to sit for the DELF, which
Right.
is
Yeah,
has I'd taken the TCF exam, which is only good for 2 years.
yeah,
So I want to take the DELF, which is a diploma, which doesn't have an expiry date.
yeah. That's good.
So
Mm.
that's a project that I have, and then continue scaling my business. Um, I have a language exchange partner who is encouraging me to, because the beginning of this year I was really swamped. She's encouraging me to hire an intern, and she has done a lot of research for me about what the rules are of hiring an unpaid intern in France, and how many weeks it can be, and she helped me to write the French job description, and so that's in the works. So we'll see where that lands. So
That
those
sounds
are some
fun.
of the things I'm working on. Yeah,
So big projects. We already we're already in April, so that's really exciting. The fun
yeah,
projects to be working on.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Patricia, thank you so much for coming today. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and very inspiring for anyone who's been watching this. So I will add the links below the comments. And best of luck for your projects. C'est pas bonne chance, mais c'est pas bon courage, c'est bonne continuation for your project. I don't like the
Merci.
bon courage. That sounds French, but that sounds just dreadful. It's bonne continuation. Not bonne chance because you're controlling it, but I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll be doing well. And I look forward to seeing the new book.
Oh, thank you.
Soon.
And
So,
so next year we'll have a
yeah,
conversation, and you can see if you
exactly.
can check these off or not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I will want to check this in January. Thank you so much for coming today, Patricia, and thank you to anyone who watched. And I will speak to you soon. Bonne soirée et bonne journée. Merci à tous. Au revoir.
Merci. Au revoir.
Merci, au revoir.